Hello everyone, this is Dartt. As I promised in the Havoc Demon Hunter video, I've spent some time playing the Vengeance Specialization, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. As you can see from the background video, I was still farming demonic invasions to gear up, and this tank managed to hold his own with a lot of the bosses without having a 700 or higher item level. In fact, the only bosses that wrecked me were the one-shot you're dead final invasion bosses, and if you fought those, you know that's exactly what they are. 500k plus health pool, gone in one attack. There's just nothing you can do as a melee or tank. The Specialization plays very differently from Havoc. It relies on pain as a resource rather than fury, and Vengeance can both take and dish out their share of pain. My first impression after trying out the rotation, which I'll be discussing later in this video, and some of the mobility tools, was that this tank spec was a fusion of Blood Death Knight and Prot Warrior without charge to intervene. Another thing that grabbed my attention early on while practicing on a Raider's training dummy was the DPS this thing was doing. Over a solid 5-minute period, my undergeared Vengeance Demon Hunter was pulling a consistent 115 to 119k DPS with cleave damage. In putting together my own Vengeance Demon Hunter, I consulted the guide on icyveins.com extensively, and I'd advise checking that site out in fine-tuning your own build. Vengeance has some very nice things going for it, but it also has some disadvantages which need to be discussed. The pros are very high mobility due to double jump, glide, and Inferno Strike, which functions like the Warrior Heroic Leap and does some damage as well. Also, Vengeance has good survivability with active mitigation cooldowns, and Soul Cleave, which consumes all soul fragments within 20 yards. This last ability makes them feel like you're playing a Blood Death Knight all over again, mashing your Death Strike button to regain health. They are also very good at gaining threat quickly against a fair number of enemies, with Soul Cleave, Immolation Aura, and Sigil of Flame. So they'd perform well as an ad tank or a 5-man instance tank. The cons. They have a fair number of active mitigation and defensive abilities to compensate for being a bit weaker out of the gates compared to other tanking specs, and you're not going to fit all of these onto a 12-button gaming mouse. So without using key bindings, this class may be problematic for optimal play. Also, according to Icy Veins, Vengeance Demon Hunters are not performing well in raid content at the moment, and they openly state that this could be due to tuning issues. Moving on to talents. As with Havoc, Vengeance doesn't have a lot of talents to choose from yet. At level 99, your options are Abyssal Strike, which increases Infernal Strike's range by 10 yards and reduces its cooldown by 5 seconds. Agonizing Flames, which causes Immolation Aura to increase your movement speed by 30% and to deal 50% increased damage. And Razor Spikes. This causes Demon Spikes, while active, to deal 20% increased physical damage, and your melee attacks snare targets for 50% of their movement speed for 6 seconds. Icy Veins suggests, and I wholeheartedly second, that you should take Agonizing Flames. Icy Veins cites that it at least helps your DPS if not contributing to survivability. Personally, I prefer to think of it in terms of spot threat generation on a crowd of enemies. But whatever you want to call it, this is currently the go-to choice. Abyssal Strike is too situational in a raid setting, and Razor Spikes might provide a utility choice at best. For level 100, you choose between Feast of Souls, that causes Soul Cleave to also place a 6-second heal over time on you in addition to its instant healing. Fallout, which causes the initial damage burst of Immolation Aura to have a chance to shatter lesser soul fragments, and Burning Alive, which causes your fiery brand to deal damage to your target every 2 seconds of its 8-second duration, and spreads it to another target every tick. However, only the initial fiery brand spreads, so it won't branch out exponentially. Icy Veins likes all of these for different reasons and different situations. And to be fair, these talents are very situational in their use. Feast of Souls is good for single target fights. Fallout can provide you with a huge healing burst in multi-target situations. And Burning Alive can grant you crazy damage mitigation against multiple targets, since Fiery Brand reduces damage on its own. Personally, I went with Feast of Souls just to test things out, although I may switch this later as the situation dictates. For my own build, the rotation is extremely simple and pretty much the same for single or multiple targets. You start off with Soul Cleave, if it's up, Immolation Aura on cooldown, then cast Sigil of Flame, then use Shear as a filler. Infernal Strike may work well for additional damage and threat in multi-target situations, but if you're going to use this, it's wise to keep one charge in reserve just in case. And another note, personally, I'm very spoiled by Fire and Forget abilities, so I definitely need more practice with using Sigil of Flame in my rotation. Active Mitigation. Vengeance Demon Hunters have a number of abilities that should be used under different circumstances. Soul Cleave you want to use whenever you need healing. Demon Spikes should be used fairly often, and you may want to incorporate it into your rotation to make sure you've got at least one charge spent. I'm definitely leaning in that direction. Empower Awards should be used if you're about to take a huge chunk of magic damage, and Fiery Brand should be placed on your target when they're about to use a high damage attack. Defensive cooldowns. You have exactly one. Metamorphosis. This can be used both proactively and reactively to help absorb a huge chunk of incoming damage or to help you survive if your health drops dangerously low. Taunts. Torment is the only true taunt ability you get. It's single target and has an 8-second cooldown. Some final thoughts. It's way too early to tell due to tuning being what it is pre-patch, but I just don't see this class as a main raid tank. Maybe a backup or add tank. I do, however, wonder how the spec would work as a flag carrier in battlegrounds like Warsong Gulch. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. I'd love to read your comments. If you'd like to leave those below, feel free to share this with your friends and guildmates. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Once again, this is Dartt. Good luck, have fun, and death to the Burning Legion.